Respected Gaurang Das ji, whose persistence made me stand before you today. Because to address meetings of this kind requires an understanding of the audience. And I don't know about this audience. For the last 3-4 decades, when I started campaigning for a mission, because today people are called orators, great speakers, but is there a mission in their speaking? Is the test which I always addressed. So when Varadaraj Bapad asked me to come and address a meeting in 2010, if I remember right, when I spoke, I found the IIT people were not unaware of what India was or is and will be. So it is the students and the faculty who asked me to conduct a course on Indian models. You can understand if the IIT people who are supposed to be the window of India to the world and who will make the world understand India, if they are not aware of what India is, you can understand the fate of India and the world. So these are all matters which made me feel very concerned. In fact, when Mr. Naveen Kumar asked me, what inspires you? This is the most important thing everybody will have to ask oneself. I said there are 3 influences over me. One is the RSS, and the second is the Kanchima Swami who guided me from my childhood and my mother. I don't think I needed any greater influences than this. But the purpose of my addressing any meeting is that I want people who are worried about what is happening today. Unless you are worried about what is happening today, listening to a speech is only undergoing torture or an entertainment. Or somebody used to say, you speak very well. That has no meaning. What I spoke is more important than how I spoke. So I always found, I told him, that if I am worried sitting alone, that's weakness. But if we bring together all the worried people and make them think together, that transforms into strength. Actually, this is what the RSS did. All the people who are worried about the country, its future, its present, it brought them together and see the mighty force that they have created. So I presume all of us are a bit worried about what's happening today. It is with this perspective I will share my thoughts. What I am going to share with you is not something new. I had already spoken it before the NITI Aayog in October last year, 2023, when I had a discussion with the Prime Minister about his G20 motto of one earth, one family, one future. I said even the Indian mind or the idea of Sanatana Dharma, which is incorporated in this motto, is not understandable to the Indians because Indians have been moved away by the education, by the public discourse, by the political system, by the media, away from the core consciousness of India. Today we don't look at India in the way in which our forefathers, our seers, our great saints, they looked at India. We don't look at the rivers like our forefathers did. We don't look at rivers, water like my mother did. I was in my village. There used to be plenty of water. My mother always used to say, don't waste water, don't waste water, don't waste water. I always used to think as a child, why is she asking me not to waste water? It's so available. And when I came and studied BCom, and in the fundamentals of economics, they used to teach us, there is some difference between what are known as free goods and what are known as economic goods. Water, air, these are all supposed to be free goods. When? 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990. These were all regarded as free goods. for which you need not have to pay. It's available in plenty. But economic goods are your shirt, your pant, your this, your that. Even today, your economics is based on this. Unless water becomes a saleable commodity, it has become. One of my friends told me in 1980 that water will be sold in this country. I was shaken. People make billions of dollars of business out of it. So there is a paradigm shift in the way in which the world looked at itself and the world is looking at today. There are 4 postulates I will give you. Unless you are introduced and evangelized into the 4 postulates which I am going to tell you, what I will tell you will make no sense. First is you have to empty your thoughts and think afresh. Maharishi Aurobindo was in Pondicherry. He came in 1909 after giving up the revolutionary path. He wanted to find out the deeper meaning of India. And he was sitting there. And he was one of the tallest minds in the country at the time, and he was sent to England by his parents. They didn't want him to be brought up in a slavish India. They wanted him to grow up in an atmosphere where a man will be free, where will be confident, and he will be different from being part of slavish India. And so when he came back, he began to understand India. He began to fight for India. And when he found that revolutionary method is not the method to fight for India, he wanted to contemplate and went to Pondicherry. And such a mighty intellectual, he was looking at a madman called Kullachwami. I don't know whether there are any Tamilians here. They would know that poet Subramanya Bharati has written poems on Kullachwami. Kullachwami is a madman. He will come and throw stones. He will cry. He will laugh. He was a Siddha Purusha. Aurobindo was saying, this man will guide me. People thought Aurobindo had lost his senses. So one day Aurobindo was sitting and having a cup of tea with his friends. And Kullachwami came and lifted the teacup in front of Aurobindo and showed it to him. Aurobindo saw the teacup was full. Then he emptied it and showed it to him. Aurobindo said, I have got my message. His friend said, you lost your tea. Please tell us what have you got. He said, no, he has made me empty my mind and begin thinking afresh. Today the world order is upside down. I am one of the persons who intensely studies the world order, being the chairman of the Vivekananda International Foundation, started by me and Ajit Doval. We wanted a nationalist think tank. In this country, there was no think tank which was thinking independently because every think tank was being funded from outside. We put it in our trust deed that we will not accept any donation from outside India, even from Indians. That is the think tank which is regarded as the most credible think tank in India because of one man called Ajit Doval. We need nationalists, we need strong people, we need unbribable people. We cannot be influenced on petty grounds, petty reasons. That somebody arranged me a lecture in Harvard University, I get sold for that. Somebody made me speak to John Hopkins, I sell myself for that. These are not the people who will think either for themselves or for you or for the country or even for the world. He established that think tank. I supported him. And I have the opportunity of heading him today. So we always study about what's happening in the world on a day-to-day basis. So the world order, as we saw after the Cold War and post-Cold War, has completely turned upside down. There is no alternative in sight. There is diffusion of powers according to the Center for Foresight of the European Union, European Commission, that all the middle powers are rising and the hegemonic powers are declining. And so there appears to be an anarchic scene. What we are talking about, environmental accord, sustainability, all these things require collective thinking. There is not going to be any collective thinking hereafter. So we are moving towards a world which is, whatever world was organized formally was not organized on the basis of what is good for the world, but what is good for the West. We talk about diversity. Diversity has become the catchword in the last 2 decades. How many of us know that in the United Nations, the word diversity came into being for the first time only in the Cultural Diversity Convention of 2001. The United Nations was formed in 1946. They never knew anything called diversity except the Western way of life as the universal way of life for the entire world. They put it in 1951 in the Measures for the Development of Underdeveloped Nations, where they said every country, every society have to disown its culture, value systems, philosophy, and become part of the Western model if you have to develop. This was a model which was signed by all the economists in the world, including one from India. And that began to be our entire government, the social sciences department, economics department, planning commission. Our policy makers were evangelized into this thinking which functions even today. But the world has realized the world is diverse. Not only in terms of people, in every sense the world is diverse. That the United Nations accepted hesitantly, grudgingly in 2021. And if you look at the Cultural Diversity Convention, there is an overriding clause. If there is a clash between cultural diversity and human rights will prevail over cultural diversity. Then there is no cultural diversity because culture is a collective virtue. If individual rights override a collective virtue, there will be no collective. Bhadraj Bapat was talking about Vyashti and Samashti. There is a sloka in Mahabharata. Tyajat yegam kulasyarte, gramarte kulam tejet, gramam janapatasyarte, atmarte prithvim tejet. A meaning of it is that the social mechanism is so organized. There is a trade-off between the individual and the family. They trade off their mutual rights and responsibilities. If an individual asserts his rights, there is no family. If the family asserts its rights over the village, there is no village. If the village asserts its rights over the nation, there is no nation. There is only one man who is not bound by any of these rules, who doesn't want anything in the world. The man, he says, I have no rights. I don't want this world. I want nothing from this world. He is only a yogi. Only that person is beyond the rules by which a person is bound, that he has to give in return something. When this great celebrated Universal Declaration of Human Rights was drafted by H.G. Wells, and he sent a copy of the draft to Mahatma Gandhi. Tell me in this audience what was Gandhi's response. He just wrote 2 lines. He said, you change the title of the draft from Universal Declaration of Human Rights into Universal Declaration of Human Duties, I will sign. There cannot be rights without duties. The West taught us, we have accepted, we have evangelized the people into thinking that there are rights without duties. The biggest problem, whether it is social, economic, political, environment, is because we owe no duty to anyone. This is what I tried to explain to the Prime Minister. And he told me, can you give your thoughts in the form of a lecture to the NITI Aayog? That's what I am going to tell you. I don't know how much time I have. But there are 3 more issues which I have to explain. One, Isaac Asimov, a Russian thinker, he said the most obvious thing is the most difficult thing to detect. When the obvious thing, the apples were falling. So everybody, the apple will only fall. What is there to inquire about it? One man inquired into it. And the entire law of dynamics, The Newtonian world emerged out of it. Of course, we are still living in Newtonian world, but science has moved far, far away from the Newtonian world. And we think the Newtonian world is a permanent world. We are operating this world. We are passing laws according to the world, changing our lifestyle according to the Newtonian laws. But Newtonian laws have lost all their relevance. It is not true. That I will go into a little later. And we need to have an integrated helicopter view of things. There is nothing called economics. There is nothing called sociology. There is nothing called environment. There is nothing called politics, laws, courts. They are all integrated. Unless we understand this integrated approach, we will not be able to understand silos, unconnected, specialized silos, limit your knowledge. Specialization has destroyed knowledge. In fact, if you look at the NITI Aayog speech, which is available in the NITI Aayog lecture, one of my friends who had taken me, he told me he went with his wife to an eye specialist. They said there are 8 eye specialists. You have to see all of them in queue, and then we will tell you what problem you have. Specialization has reduced any one person from understanding what is the problem. 8 persons will have to agree. This is what the economist said. If 5 economists came together, there will be 6 opinions. This is how we talked about economy. The specialization has made it easy to make money, but it has completely destroyed the system of knowledge. So we need a helicopter view, and we have to decontextualize ourselves. The entire world is today contextual. We are sitting in the NSC building. It is only worried about what is the day today, how much the share moved this way or that way, tomorrow what will be the position. NSC will not think what will happen to the world after 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And this is the headlines. So unless we decontextualize ourselves, we will not be able to understand what the truth is. These are the 4 postulates. Empty your thoughts. Obvious things conceal the truth. And you have got to have an integrated helicopter view, and you have to decontextualize yourself. And I will immediately take you to what the NITI Aayog speech, in which I explained what I explained to the Prime Minister. I told you about the Newton's falling apple facts. I will tell you what are the falling apple obvious facts, which we don't understand at all. We are not conscious of, we do ignore, and which is not integrated into our whole approach to life. One is, you look at the earth, land, space. You have got 29% of the world as land, the rest as sea, and of which 10% is the farmland. Now, you look at what is the contribution of farmland to our food. Food is the most important thing, without which none of us can live. In this, the cereal cultivation gives you 83% of the calorie value and 63% of the protein value. Cereal cultivation. Meat cultivation gives you 17% of the calorie value and 37% of the protein value. But only less than 2% of the land is used for cereal cultivation, and 8% and little more than 8% of the land is used for meat cultivation. These are all global facts. That is, the cereals give you 16 times the calorie value in terms of intake, and 5 times the value of protein. Keep this in mind. These are all universal global facts, unchallenged. If you want to look at what is the source, there is on ourworldindata.com, which puts together all the data of all institutions who have done fundamental research, like FAO and things like that. You can go to the source. And now I will come to India. The 7 facts about India, which we must know if we have to talk about environment, sustainability. The sustainability word itself is not your word. It is their word. It has been imposed on you. And I will explain to you, sustainability is the basic law of nature. It is not mechanics. So, in India, we have 2.4% of global land area, and we have 18% of human population. We have 30% of bovine population. We have 40% of cattle population. We have 8% of world's bioresources. It's an ecological circus. How in such a small space? You look at America, it is 3.5 times the size of India, which has 1/5 of our bovine and cattle population. China is 3.5 times the size of India. It has just 8% of our bovine population. Now, we have 1% of farmland and 21% forest coverage. Unthinkable. How we manage this? If you know how we manage this, you know what is sustainability, you know what is lifestyle, you know what is philosophy, you know what is way of life, you know what is culture. You see, we consume 168 kilograms of cereal per head per annum. And we consume 3.1 kg of meat per head per annum. Keep this ratio in mind. We consume 44 times in terms of calorie value cereals. US consumes 124 kg of meat and 80 kg of cereal. And China, I am only taking these countries because these are prominent countries comparable to India. And China consumes 61 kg of meat and 112 kg of cereal. This is how the food arrangement is there. That is, US cereal consumption to meat is just 0.64 times, and China somewhat around 1.9 times. They are great meat consumers. Keep this in mind. But what meat does? Meat gives you 10 to 100 times more CO2 gas emission as compared to cereals. This does not figure in the global environmental debate, which is only about how to produce green energy. It is only on the supply side. On the demand side, we are very happy consuming tons and tons of meat. The latest estimate shows that nearly 60% of all CO2 gas emission, you know what is CO2 gas emission? It takes several thousand years for the atmosphere to absorb this. We pump poison into the atmosphere, and it is being done by meat-eating countries. You are really doing the reverse. And most of the ecologists, you look at the Times of India, any number of interviews and articles have come in the last 6 to 1 year, that the whole world is being heated up by the West, cooled only by India. This is our lifestyle. This is our food style. This is our philosophy. This is our value of life, way of life. It is not that the Indians do not eat meat. Nearly 67% of the Indians are non-vegetarians. But there is a ratio between meat is a sabji for us. In fact, meat eating is permitted in our Shastras. Some people have to eat meat because they do that kind of work. It is not that we were impractical. It is not that we were ideal. It is not that we were thinking of rewriting the world order in our own way. This is how you have to eat. No. So, let us look at, if the whole world shifts to the Western way of eating food, we will need 140% agricultural land as compared to what we have today in the world. If the whole world shifts to the Indian way of eating, we will need only 40% of the agricultural land we use today. If India shifts to the Western way of eating, we will need 6 times the agricultural land we have. Any of us know this? Any IIT talks about it? Any media talks about it? These are all Newton's falling apple facts. This entire discourse is illiterate. We have no understanding. I am not saying eulogizing any particular way of life, but there is an arrangement by which, Shoemaker, when he wrote, I don't know how many of you are aware of Shoemaker. In 1960s and 70s, he was the darling of the world. He wrote a book called Small is Beautiful. In fact, we were all evangelized into understanding the world economics and Indian economics primarily by Shoemaker's view. He said, the whole world is moving, the universe is moving in a certain order. The planets are moving, everything is moving. Nothing is harming the other. And you say there are comets, there are flying stones. And you see the newspaper, the earth is, some big stone, mountain is coming near India. We are in danger. It goes. And it has been going for thousands and thousands of years like that. So the nature has been arranged and is working in perfect harmony with itself. So Shoemaker asked this question. Is all this happening by accident? Or is there a grand design behind it? Is there a mind behind it? So if you look at all the Indians are having a certain proportion between cereal and meat, and that is making them live on 2.4% of the land, 18% population, they live with cattle. In 1960s and 70s, we did not have cereal to eat. We had to beg for food from America. But you look at the statistics, the cattle population kept increasing. We didn't eat the cattle. That's our relationship. When we worship cow, there is a meaning behind it. When we worship trees, there is a meaning behind it. When we worship rivers, there is a meaning behind it. That's the relationship. Isavasya midam sarvam yatkinjat jagadyam jagati tena tiktena punjidaha magrida kasya sviddaram. This one verse, Mahatma Gandhi said, if the Hindus lose all their literature and this one verse is saved, it will save them. You know what is the meaning of it? The entire creation is a one great force, one divine. What we see as this building, as you, as me, science has proved it is just a collection of atoms moving at a particular regularity that gives the shape that you are appearing as a man because of that. Atomic theory has now been overtaken by consciousness theory. I don't know whether you... In fact, I spoke the other day in Indian Knowledge Systems meeting organized by Vadaraj Papat, that the entire world, the entire material world emerged out of universal consciousness. That's our theory, Vedic theory, that has been given Nobel Prize in 2021 to Roger Penrose, who worked with Stephen Hawking in the Big Bang theory. He moved away from the Big Bang theory and said that matter emerged out of consciousness. That's our view. And that sets the whole lot of relationships between man, nature, animals, river, space. This one integrated view is scientific. It is no more what Vadaraj Bapat explained. May have looked abstract. No, it is scientific. This is not what you are taught. This is not the public discourse. This is not the syllabus in your textbooks. This is not even the government's view. Whenever I have spoken to audiences, the only thing I found is a sense of shock. Because our concerns do not get expressed in terms of our words and actions. We have to move. We have to challenge the existing theories. I give you small examples. Take our housing economics. I'm basically an economic thinker. We have 4.5 persons per household in India. We have about 300 million households. And in America, the number of persons per household was 3.1 in 1960. It has become 2.51. 0.6 person per household reduction in 60 years. This meant 35 million more houses. So many air conditioners, so many cars, so many refrigerators, so much of cement production. Let's assume in India, 4.5 persons per household becomes 2.5% per household. We will need 144 million more houses. You don't have the space. Your environment will be destroyed. Do you understand that living together contributes to environment? Your human rights, that you need not have to take care of your parents. You can frame your own life. That is destroying families. That is destroying economics. That is destroying housing. That is destroying environment. Where do you draw the line between economics, housing, environment? And everyone is an expert. There is a housing expert. There is a financial expert. There is an environment expert. And there are environmental activists. I cannot understand. We need a revolution in thinking. That's what I said in the beginning. That we have to empty our thoughts and begin thinking afresh. We need a revolution in thinking. I don't want a revolution on the road. Those who worked for the revolution on the road have accounted for 280 million people in this world. How with this philosophy? Philosophy gives you the goal of life. How we live like this, we must understand, no? It's not accident. There is a cogent logic behind it. Philosophy gives you goal of life. Goal of life settles the lifestyle. Lifestyle settles the habits. Habits settle what you want and don't want. And that settles what you produce and don't produce. That is why in India, the philosophy is that you should treat animals with reverence. That is the starting point of man not eating animals. So he had to find an alternative. The alternative is cereal. And that is the sustainable model. Has anyone told you the world has to shift to cereal if it has to have a sustainable economics? They will say, no. You have to shift to solar energy. You have to shift to some other way of producing energy. You should only move away from coal. This is sustainability. Is there greater nonsense than this? This is a question we have to ask for ourselves. When I was a student, we had 2 shirts and 2 pants. Today, if you open somebody's wardrobe, I have gone and seen some of the wardrobes. I have seen people having 100 shoes, 20, 30 coats, 40 watches. That becomes a style without a philosophy. Philosophy connects us to the entire universe. It is the unwritten link between me and a person whom I do not know, the animal I do not know, the river I do not know. And I will conclude my speech with a reference to one great scholar who produced a website called Power Kills. He is Professor Ramal of Hawaii University. And he tabulated 2,500 years of violence among human beings. Human beings, mass killing human beings. And he said in the 2500 years, maximum 1.2 billion people, minimum 680 million people have been slaughtered by humans. And he has tabulated where, in which place, how many people got killed. Till the 13th century, there was no killing in India. Only one exception was Ashoka's Kalinga war, in which 100,000 people died. You must look at that side. How is it when the whole world was letting blood? We were not doing anything. If you can't kill the cow, you will obviously not kill a human being. If you will not hurt a bird, you will. That is why Shibi was celebrated. Yadyatacharati sreshtaha tattatteva itaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tattanuvartate. The kind of heroes you worship shape the society. You worshipped Shibi. You worshipped great people who stood by animals. They shaped our thought, our philosophy, our way of life. So whenever I speak, my whole idea is to make all of you feel worried. Your worry is energy. Transform your worry into energy. And that is possible only if there is a collective action. And we must speak the truth. Without speaking the truth, there is no mission. So my request, because I have put together diverse and unconnected subject and trying to connect the dots, I would request you to go through some of the materials I have suggested, including my speech before the NITI Aayog, and try to get a perception. We should not be holding conferences merely to talk about sustainability without defining what it is. If sustainability means only producing green energy, it is not sustainability. And the entire amount of financial control is being brought in. You know what is the amount of CO2 gas emission the West has put into the atmosphere? 80% of the CO2 gas emission so far put into the atmosphere was by the West. He said, no, don't take into account the past. In future, we won't do it. You have dirtied the whole world. And we have not yet begun our dirtying job. I have dirtied, no, you can't dirty. That means, in the modern sense of the word development, we are developed and you can never develop. So we have to define what is development. They have to pay for their lifestyle. They have to be taxed for their lifestyle. You know, there was a study in 2015 which said the amount of wardrobe which was thrown into the sea by the English people was $32 billion. Unused wardrobe bought because of marketing. The issue is very serious. We have to focus on the consumption side, which means on the lifestyle, which means on the habits, which means on the goal of life, which means ultimately the philosophy. Thank you very much.